are y'all this evening? Good. All right, welcome everyone to the presentation meeting for June. With it getting ready to ramp up in the tropics, I figured it was a good time to discuss operations for Skywarn, specific as it is to York County, as well as our network, the Greenville-Spartanburg Regional Skywarn. How many of you guys are familiar with our Skywarn net? Have you heard it, listened to it, things like that? Okay, perfect. We're going to go over the operationally how it works. We're going to cover a little bit of review on Skywarn itself. So our nets take place on our repeater here in Rock Hill. It's currently the W4FTK repeater. They will be rebranding that to the K9OH repeater once they get out there to make that change. That repeater's at 444925 with a positive offset, which makes the transmit side 449925 with a PL tone of 91.5. It's located over here in the junkyard. A lot of you guys are familiar with that site. That repeater's been there for a little while. That net, we do a training and information net every Tuesday and Thursday night at 7:30 local time. That repeater is currently linked into the K9OH repeater system, which is also linked into the WARNS system. More on that here in a second. As it stands, they're fighting a lot of interference on the linked radio side, so they're having a lot of problems hearing us. We can hear them just fine. They can't seem to hear us from our repeater going across the link. That being said, currently the best way to get into that net is with the Echo Link nodes. The Echo Link, you can use either K9OH-R or N4LRD-R. N4LRD does not currently have a timeout, so you can actually stay logged in to the node. The K9OH node, when you log in, it'll kick you out after, I think it's 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. It'll kick you. So for the net, I recommend N4LRD. That node is connected to the wide area repeater network system. There are 15 repeaters in the upstate of South Carolina that are all linked together to make this big mesh network of repeaters that covers severe weather. So when severe weather impacts the state, our net coverage on RF is from Oconee County all the way down towards Aiken County, into Columbia, and up towards us. We're working on pushing east. As things move forward, we'll work on getting some of the low country and out towards the coastal areas. As far as the nets go, the Tuesday and Thursday nets, they take check-in by emergency management area. For anyone not familiar, we are in Zone 2. The net control stations, typically it's Tommy. Tommy's really good about denoting who he's taking check-ins from. They start with Zone 1, including northern Georgia and western North Carolina, some of those counties that check in. Northeast Georgia checks in quite a bit because Greenville-Spartanburg's Weather Service office covers all the way down towards, halfway between here and Peachtree City. There are a couple counties over there in the northeast Georgia. We're in Zone 2, all the way down to Lancaster County and across, even though technically Lancaster County falls under Columbia's warning area. We all work pretty well together. Your net control operators will take reports from wherever they come from, and with NWS Chat, we can put those reports into whatever room they need to go to. Whether it's Roanoke or Peachtree City or Wilmington, Charleston, whoever it happens to be, we can put reports in where they need to go. They take check-ins. Tommy usually gives us a weather brief as to what's going on. If there's severe weather coming, we'll talk about that. On the net, they'll give us a little bit of a heads up what the plan might be, things like that, which is not the case when we're in a severe weather net. Our severe weather nets do not take check-ins. They are not the nets of old that we had on the W4BFB system out of Charlotte, where they would take check-ins and give weather reports and all that. They're not interested in that. When it comes to severe weather, when we're in an active severe weather net, information is going to be passed to stations via the net control station. They're going to read watches and warnings. They're going to advise on weather conditions and what to expect where you are, things of that nature. There may be times when stations are called on. If you're in this area, check in with net control. But for the most part, the purpose of the net is to provide information out to the amateur radio community and the community that's listening, as well as to take weather reports from stations that have been impacted. This is a quick graphic to show the repeaters that are currently in the WARNS repeater system. Bonus points to anyone who can identify the big problem with the system that we are currently experiencing. Specifically, anyone who tries to check into our Friday night YCARS net, you'll notice the KJ4 YLP repeaters at 147.030 with a negative offset. That's our repeater's tone, the YTZ repeater. That's the repeater, and the net, you can see the YCARS net, that's the net and the repeater that interfere with ours when SC Hart was having tone issues on the repeater. You know, every Friday night we would hear them clear as day. They couldn't hear us, we could hear them. The repeater was transmitting what they were, it was a nightmare. So that's that. That's a real quick graphic as to where the repeaters are, so you can kind of get an idea. This is, if you just Google WARNS repeater system, you can see all the repeaters, where they are, their current status, things like that. You'll also notice weather alerts. Those are selectable. Net control will turn those off during a weather net because they take priority on the repeater. So if you're just listening and monitoring the system, the repeater system will actually come on and say thunderstorm warning, and then it cuts in and broadcasts the National Weather Service NOAA weather radio audio. It'll come across, it'll tell you what's going on, where it is, and all that. So in the event that a net control station is up, they will turn the weather alerts on the system off to prevent having to listen to multiple repetitive alerts that you can't override. You'll notice the K9OH repeater down there on Caesar's Head. It is currently operational. It is not permanently linked to the WARN system, or at least at last check it was not. If the WARN system detects an alert, it will link that system automatically. Lately it's been tied in, it's been linked up. I think they're testing some new linking methods, which is what's coming to the Rock Hill site. Once we can get out and actually make it happen, it needs to have its call sign changed, and we're going to change how it links, so it'll link over IP instead of RF. It'll be much more reliable, less subject to interference, things of that nature. Reportable criteria. This is what National Weather Service wants to know about. Obviously, if you see a tornado, a funnel cloud, or a wall cloud, let us know. That kind of takes priority. I would say that's worth break. I don't care where we are in the net. If you see something spinning on the ground, in the air, or a lowering shelf cloud, something along those lines, break in and let us know. Oftentimes with the National Weather Service, especially out of Greenville-Spartanburg, sometimes storms are really hard to get eyes on with the radar. If you sat through my radar presentation, this is a little bit of a refresher for you, but if not, welcome to it. So the radar dome at Greenville-Spartanburg, on its lowest elevation setting, when that beam passes over Rock Hill, South Carolina, the lowest level that radar can see is about 7,000 feet off the ground. Tornadoes don't occur at 7,000 feet. By definition, for a tornado, it has to be on the ground. They can't see that reliably. That's why spotters are so very important. The National Weather Service in Greenville-Spartanburg is very good about asking. If they see that we're in the chat and we're up and monitoring, during the severe weather that pushed through a few days ago, they had the tornado warning storm over Union County, North Carolina. It was showing a real good velocity couplet. It had real good gate-to-gate shear. It was starting to lower. They had to put the tornado warning on it because it met all the criteria. But they came in the chat and said, can anybody get eyes on that storm because we can't see it. There's no real estate out there. The beam, there's a lot of obstructions coming out that way. Again, with elevation. Even Charlotte's Tower Doppler, it was a little far away for that to see. It's at the extent of Columbia's, reliable coverage. So no matter how they tried to look at that storm, they couldn't get good eyes on it. And a spotter on the ground saying, yes, there's a tornado or a funnel cloud, there's rotation visible, or there's nothing here. It's a little bit of rain, it's kind of windy, but I don't see anything on the ground. That makes the decision for them whether they're going to continue that warning or let it expire. In that case, some of our spotters on the ground said, there's nothing rotating, we have eyes on the cell, we can see it, and there's nothing concerning about it. At that point, they decided to let the tornado warning expire, not continue it as a tornado warning. Instead, they went with a special weather statement, which the varying levels of warning on that, potentially saved them from unnecessarily pulling that big red handle. Winds in excess of 58 miles an hour, that is a measured wind speed. They want to know that you were able to measure the speed of a wind gust in excess of 58. That's something they want to know about because that leads to damage. That's about the threshold for tree damage and things of that nature. Obviously, hail of any size. Again, the radar beam at 7,000 feet can show hail. Anytime you open one of your weather apps, you're looking at radar and you click on a cell, it'll tell you there's 1-inch hail in that cell. When have you seen 1-inch hail in Rock Hill? Almost never. It's been a long time. Because at 7,000 feet, if you have a 1-inch chunk of hail and it falls through the atmosphere, by the time it reaches the ground, oftentimes it's not even hail anymore. So those are the kind of things they want to know about. Is that hail making it to the ground? How much of it is making it to the ground? What's it look like when it gets there? And is it causing damage? Any storm damage needs to be reported. There's a couple big reasons for that. Flooding, water impeding roadways. Depending on your previous Skywarn experience, you've heard 2 inches of rain per hour measured over 15 minutes is reportable criteria. That's a really complicated way to say rain that's impacting something. If it's raining and it's not bothering anybody, it's just raining, that's not something that necessarily we need to know about. If it's raining a lot and a road is flooded, a bridge is washed out, there's a mudslide on a hill, something's flooded that doesn't normally flood, tell us. But back to storm damage, specifically tree damage, as descriptive as possible. It's about a 2-inch diameter healthy branch of a pine tree. That gives us a really good visual of what's going on with that report. The other thing is that helps with damage surveys. So if we see a trend of weather damage and it's all isolated along a track that had a velocity couplet that showed a good tornado potential, maybe that's an area they want to go out and do a damage survey versus taking a local storm report, which we'll dissect here in a minute, and just kind of rolling with it as tree damage. As far as time frame on weather reports, there really isn't one. 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, a week, a month later, they're still collecting their data to publish their report on what happened. Obviously, as soon as possible is ideal. Stay safe, stay indoors, and when the storm's over and you go out and check your property, make a note of the damage you have. Fence got blown down, patio furniture was displaced, things like that. Let us know what the intensity of that storm when it passed through. Another big thing with storm damage is, let's say you're on vacation. I'm going out of town this weekend, I'll be back Monday morning. I come back Monday and find trees down. Report that. We'll get into the different ways to report those things. If it's a non-priority, if it's something like, you come home from vacation and some trees fell on your fence, send me an email. Send one of our net control operators an email. Catch us on a Tuesday or Thursday night net. Hey, just wanted to report that this had happened. Or report it to the National Weather Service with their online form, because that helps, again, determine severity of damage. Does anyone have any questions yet? Okay. So now we're going to talk about how to do a storm report, what information we need. At the end of the day, if you have any doubt, if you're standing there and you don't necessarily know that it's something that's reportable or not, if there's a net up, call us and tell us. Let the net control stations be that filter. The other big thing with that is, for example, damage to trees, hail, any of the things that are common. National Weather Service may tell us as the net control stations, or as our emergency management partners or whatever, all of the storms that are going to happen in this region today are going to produce hail. We don't want to know about dime size hail unless it gets up, quarter size, $50 size hail. When you start talking about big hail, then we need to know, because there are times when the environment is conducive to hail, and every cell that pops up is going to produce hail. There's going to be times when every storm that moves through has 60 plus mile an hour wind gusts. Anytime an operator in the field experiences that, let us know about it. Net control may take all of those reports and write them all down on a list, and when all is said and done, when the tornado threat has passed, when the derecho threat has passed, whenever the major threat has passed, we'll culminate all of that data and send it to National Weather Service in an email or maybe via the chat or however they determine is best to do it with, hey, just so you guys know, York County, we had 15 reports of dime-size hail from these cells. They know the storm's producing hail. We may not pass every single piece of that information to them at once because it may overload if they have a tornado threat, if they're dealing with something across a different area, which is common around here where Oconee County may have a tornado on the ground. Pickens County, out that way, they may be dealing with multiple cells that are producing multiple tornadoes, but we have a wind damage issue in the upstate, or our side of the upstate. We may be dealing with flooding. We may not have that tornado threat. During our nets, pass us the information about flooding, damage to trees and things of that nature. Let us put all that in and hold on to it until they can take reports that are less severe than tornadoes, funnel clouds, and things of that nature. So as you can see up at the top, that's what a local storm report looks like in its condensed form. This was actually just a few days ago out of Lake Delton, Wisconsin. You see, NWS Bot is their automatic service that chats things in and brings things in and out, Twitter reports, things like that. It's their catch-all bot that does all their communications. Local storm report by the National Weather Service out of MKX, Lake Delton, which is Sauk County, trained spotter, so who. If you've taken the Skywarn training and you're a trained spotter, if you're calling it on amateur radio, it'll say amateur radio reports. It could say trained spotter reports, general public reports, public safety reports, emergency management, media reports. They have a plethora of categories that they can use. Then it's what they have reported. In this case, it's a thunderstorm wind gust. There's non-thunderstorm wind gust, tornado, wildfire, landslide, hail, you name it. All of those categories exist in their metric there. Magnitude, obviously how severe it was. In this case, it was a gust of 60 miles per hour, and then obviously a time and a date. And then they put in a comment section, which is where they can put in, if you put in thunderstorm wind damage, you can put in multiple trees down on fences across the county, or something more specific like 1,000 square foot pole barn structure flattened by wind gust. That's where they can put in what they suspect it was, what they, the comments that they need to portray. They get very creative with the comments sometimes because, again, the more descriptive you can be, the better, and those get good. You'll also sometimes see non-thunderstorm wind gusts. Obviously, the difference is one happened in a convective environment, one happened in not so much convective environment. A lot of times the mountains, you'll see non-severe or non-thunderstorm wind gusts. The breakdown you see below that is the full source, what gets put in the system, their database that they use, and all of that's available. You can Google local storm reports, and there's a website from the National Weather Service that you can put in what service, GSP, CAE for Columbia, whoever it may be, and you can view every storm report from any day of the week all the way back as far as they have them. You can view the text, you can view all of the radar imaging. They cache all of that data, attach it to these storm reports. Probably early spring next year, one of the projects I'm working on now is gathering all of this information, and we're going to do a presentation on severe weather from forecast model to storm report, including all of the steps in between. That'll probably be a pretty long presentation, but we're working on getting some of the data for that now. So you may see this part again. Again, in the middle, you see time, event, location, lat, launch, date, magnitude, the source, and the remarks that it came from it. The big thing here is latitude and longitude. If you have the ability to quickly get us GPS coordinates, an APRS beacon, whatever it may be, do it. That's the most accurate way to get that information, and that will really help when they go to do a storm report. Or if they have to go do a damage survey, if they see a trend, damage, 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 and there's an outlier way over here somewhere, that's a situation where somebody said, well, I'm somewhere near Rock Hill and I have this happen. That may get missed. If you can give a specific location, if you have a radio that'll do APRS, tell the net control station, I'm going to drop an object. Or if you're not comfortable going in and doing that, or you're not in a position to be able to do it, just say, I'm going to go ahead and beacon, I'm WD2DW, my suffix that day would be -7, and the net control station can pull up APRS, view your exact GPS location, and figure out what the report is from there. It's a tool that we really haven't preached a lot, but nowadays with the Anytones and the Yaesus and even the ICOMs able to do, D-Star, DPRS stuff, if you have that feature enabled, we're going to start using it. Bonus points to the first person that tells me that they dropped a WX beacon on the map to tell me where something happened. I will save that beacon forever, and it will be in every presentation going forward. You will be a superstar in the weather community if you manage to pull that off. Just let that sink in. So, or pose that as a challenge to the group. If you can APRS beacon me a weather report, you'll be my new favorite person, because that makes our job super simple. Again, you can see where they have what everything is, and then they filled in the blanks with, magnitude, etc., and then the details. A number of trees were reported blown down across the county as well. This is kind of a catch-all LSR, local storm report, where, wilderness resort. I've never been there. Sounds like a beautiful place. Number of trees reported down. They didn't put in every individual report. The life cycle of a report, you tell the net control station, I have dime-size hail, here's my location. I'm at this street and that street. I'm at Dave Lyle and Black. Cool, I know exactly where that is. Roll with it. I put all that in NWS chat. Typically, we try to formulate it in this format because it makes it easy for them to just copy, paste, and be done. They don't have to go in and decipher, move things around, convert, lat longe into decimal degrees that they can use and make all that happen. As long as it's consistent, they'll just take it and put it into a local storm report, and then that's what gets published in that format. Again, we're working on a presentation to go over what a local storm report looks like in its entirety, not just the text block, but the entirety of the alert from start to finish. A lot of the reports you'll see are coming from social media. The Weather Service is actively monitoring Twitter. They do it constantly. They actively try to monitor Facebook, but with the algorithm the way it is now and how things move around, it's really hard to get live information. They love tweets. If you have damage and you're out taking pictures of a tree on your fence, take that picture, tweet it to them real quick if you have Twitter, or send it to us and we'll tweet it to them if you don't. They love that. It gives them firsthand, eyes on the ground, here's what's going on and where it is. If you have pictures and you call it in on amateur radio, let us know. Hey, this is what I've seen, this is what I've got pictures of it. We'll tell you, go ahead and send them to me so we can get that information to them. A lot of times you'll hear the net control station. If they're familiar with the station, you'll hear somebody key up and say, hey, I'm at work and here's what's going on. If the net control station says, I copy that, I got your report, whatever, we'll get it submitted. Don't send emails asking how we knew where that person was. If it's somebody that we're familiar with, we may know, hey, I'm at work means that's so-and-so who works at the airport, and they're just getting a report out real quick. We've had stuff like that happen where somebody got bent out of shape over how somebody else called in a report. If the net control station needs clarification, we will ask you. We will absolutely ask you. Say again where you are. Or a lot of times our net control stations are familiar with the Greenville-Spartanburg area. If somebody says, I'm by the old Winn-Dixie, they may know where that is. I don't have a clue. I barely know what a Winn-Dixie is. I'm not going to be able to tell you where the old one was. So if somebody asks you to clarify, understand that your net control station may be in Greenville or Spartanburg. They may not be familiar with the old Herald building, at Main and Wilson. They may not know what's going on or exactly where you are, especially if you're going to be like Highway Patrol and use numbers on your roads. If you tell them you're at Highway 5 is a long road. It goes from Lancaster to Blacksburg. That's a long road, and it's Main Street at least 3 times along that route. You gotta give them something to go by that they can find it. Again, an APRS beacon is the best thing. Net control, I beaconed. Here's where, I'm in this area, and here's what I have. Works the best. In case you can't tell, I'm really trying to push for that going forward. Anybody have any questions? Are there any questions from the folks online? Nothing yet? Cool. Our net control procedures for severe weather. Oftentimes, especially with tropical systems, we have a really good idea that this is going to happen. South Carolina has been really good from an ARES perspective and from an emergency management perspective with briefing on severe weather before it happens. With the system with Claudette that just pushed through, we got a little bit of rain out of the deal. We got emails from EOC. If you remember the ARES Connect group, you got an email from Billy. Here's what we're expecting. Here's what we're doing. Bless you. Here's what we're going to do moving forward. Conference calls are scheduled. Ham Shack hotline bridges are put up. DMR systems are put into emergency mode. The state prepares for this stuff days out. Because oftentimes, the difference between a major impact and a near miss is a couple of miles. If we know it's coming, typically if we're in a moderate risk area from the Storm Prediction Center or higher, we've already talked about it as net control stations. We already have a plan in place, who's available, who's not, what we're going to do, what the impacts are going to be like, if we're going to be linking and unlinking repeaters, for isolated impacts, things of that nature. We'll discuss that ahead of time. We may schedule a severe weather net. Hey guys, Tuesday we have the 7:30 net. Starting about 8 o'clock, we're going to have severe weather move through. We're already going to have a net up. We're just going to roll with it. Or the threat is high enough that we deem it's necessary to have people standing by for those events. The other caveat to that is how widespread the event's going to be. Summertime pulse thunderstorms. Someone in South Carolina is getting severe weather at any given time between noon and 6, just about any day of the week, because we have pulse thunderstorms in the summertime. Some of them do get to severe level. Somewhat of an oddity. Our threat is really more the quasi-linear convective systems, renegade supercells, things of that nature. However, it does happen where summertime storms get big enough that they could produce some small hail, or their outflow when they decay is what pushes them, maybe not severe limits, but to the point where you can definitely sustain wind damage. If that's the case and it's an isolated event, a net may not be stood up in time because it's a short notice or no notice event. Monitor the repeaters. It's always okay to call out and say, hey, is there a Skywarn NCO that can take a weather report? If you're driving and can't get to a medium to get that report in a safe manner, and you're already on the repeater, you're talking on the net, is there a Skywarn NCO that can take a weather report? I don't know of a single Skywarn NCO that would go, I'm not going to answer that call today. We're all chomping at the bit to go, heck yeah, give me a reason to do something. Make it worth my time. Give me something to report to them. It makes us look good as an organization. It makes us look good as a hobby, and it makes us look good as a group, as a county, as whatever you want to call us. So we're always looking for those reports. And again, when in doubt, report it. Let us be that filter between, yes, that's reportable, and, well, maybe we'll just shoot it to them as an email, and if they need that information, they have it. The big reason behind that is the Weather Service may determine that they need to follow up with somebody on that. I've sent in a report, and actually Darcy, K4DQP, sent in a report and said, hey, I've got hail. Here's what's going on. I submitted that report. National Weather Service messaged me immediately back with, get that spotter, figure out what's going on. I need more details on that storm. Hey, Darcy, what kind of hail are you dealing with? How big is it? Where is it? How long ago did it start? How long did it last? You said dime size. Was that average or was that the biggest piece? Did it get bigger? Was there quarter size? And all that information that we took back fed to National Weather Service, and they put a severe thunderstorm warning on that cell based on that report. The difference is a special weather statement, most people don't even know they're under a special weather statement. It doesn't alert your cell phone. Most of the time it won't set off your weather radio unless you have it set to do that. And let's be honest, in the springtime, your weather radio will be going off every 3 or 4 days. That's the way it is. It's a rainstorm at that point. It is a serious threat, but it's not yet severe. Most people don't even pay attention to the special weather statement. A severe thunderstorm warning can trigger your cell phone alerts. It can activate your weather radio. If it goes to a tornado warning based on data, emergency management may set off Duke Energy's sirens. The next step up is a wireless emergency alert or a WEA alert. Those activate your cell phone, whether you want them to or not. I'm sure you've all been standing in a store when an Amber Alert comes out, and every phone in the building lets you know something's going on. That's the next step in that hierarchy. A lot of times it's the difference between a confirmed report and a radar indicated report that makes that decision as to whether or not to continue that alert or upgrade that warning to something more serious. Again, wireless emergency alert, or God forbid a PDS, a particularly dangerous situation. If, and this is a specifically York County function, if we are involved in a severe weather event that is impacting us directly, standard operating protocol right now with the repeaters being in the shape they're in is to unlink the repeater from the network so that we can host our net locally, get the reports from our folks here, and not interfere with them, because if they can't hear us, all we're doing is interfering with them. They get very choppy audio. Sometimes it comes in, sometimes it doesn't. Then they're asking for clarification. We take the repeater off the network. We hold our severe weather net here locally, and at the end we'll bring it back up. That's an interim plan until we get that fixed. Should be soon. We have all the hardware. We're waiting to get a team together to go to the repeater site. Trying to coordinate repeater site access is a challenge based on the fact that most of the sites are co-housed, and having access to those sites is a little bit of a challenge sometimes. Again, working on fixing that as well. More to come. Anybody have any questions about severe weather procedures, how things work? When it doesn't work, if you can't get a net control station, if you are having trouble getting in on the radio to figure out what you need to do, whether it's reportable or not, the website that's listed, weather.gov/GSP/storm report. It is basically a Google form. You go to their website, it's embedded, you fill out your information, you submit a report, it goes directly to them via email. Again, Twitter @NWSGSP. That works for most other offices as well. If you're 77 South, cruising Richland County, and you start getting hail, you pull over to a safe location, @NWSCAE. There's a good chance that's their handle as well. You can directly send them those reports that way. This is what that storm report form looks like. Obviously, this is just a screenshot. It has their standard header. You can use the map to find your local office if you're not in the GSP region, but that's the storm report form. You go through and it'll ask you, what did you experience? I recommend everybody go to the website, take a look at the form. That way, the first time you need to use it, you're not shocked by all the stuff that's in there and how they have it laid out. Excuse me. And again, that's their basic storm report form. Does anybody have any questions? Pretty sure that's about the end of the presentation. Does anybody have anything else? Anything that they want to discuss? Something I didn't cover as far as how it works? The repeater coverage currently is handheld coverage in the city of Rock Hill for the most part if you're outside. Inside obviously is a little spotty. You can't expect a handheld to do you much good on the inside. I can usually hit it from my house inside in my recliner with my handheld, no problem. It's suffered a little bit of a performance issue lately, again with the interference on the link, and they're trying to change up some things on the site. We're going to work on getting that fixed, getting it IP linked so that we don't have that problem anymore. The other option is going forward, you're going to see, for those of you who are familiar with the All-Star Link controllers, it's what currently we have on the K4YTZ repeater. It's a Raspberry Pi. It runs an All-Star distribution. It allows linking, integrated echo link, repeater controller functions. I mean, you name it, it'll do anything. Most of your repeater links in the area anyway are going to the All-Star system. If you're familiar with the W4FTK repeaters, we have the UHF here in Rock Hill. They're throughout the state now and into North Carolina for that matter. All of their repeaters link with the All-Star controllers. They are highly reliable. The VHF in Rock Hill should be coming back online pretty soon. I expect it's going to be the 147-300. Don't hold me to that, but we're working on that. Those link controllers, you can take a Raspberry Pi. If you're not familiar, it's a single board computer. Super powerful little thing. We've got a plethora of them in the shack. Take your Raspberry Pi, you can build an All-Star distribution and either use like a Bluetooth headset or a dongle of some sort on a Raspberry Pi and link into that network, and you are now a node for that network. The other thing you can do is take that Raspberry Pi controller, connect it to a radio. Now you have a simplex node. So you're going to start seeing a lot of expansion with that here in the region, at least with the YCARS Club locally, as well as I'm hoping across the community. No longer do you need a massive CommScope antenna 400 feet off the ground, fed with hardline, Motorola repeaters. You don't need that anymore. In order to expand your coverage, all you need is a decent antenna at a reasonable height hooked up to a node that's on simplex. So if you're in the Newport area and you can't reach the YCARS repeater, the Newport simplex node might be at 146.585. Now on simplex, you're talking to the node, and the node over the internet is connected to the repeater system, and all of the nodes are now linked together. So as an option, if you're in an area where you lack coverage from a repeater, you could build one of the little nodes. They're very inexpensive. The top of the line Raspberry Pis are going for $40, $45 at this point. With a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of wiring, I'm sure Steve can help you out with that. Wire it up to your radio. Now you have a simplex node that you can control either via DTMF, again through the programming of the All-Star controller, or through an app on your phone, or from the Pi itself, and you can link it into the Skywarn repeater network, the W4FTK repeater network, the K4YTZ repeater system. Whatever you want to link it to, you can link it to anything, including worldwide. You can link it into the PALS network down in the Midlands area. You can link it to, there's a big PAPA system out in California. You can link it to the Zombie Alert system that's up in, I think they're in suburban Detroit. You can link it wherever you want to link to. You can talk to them over RF. It is internet based, but it's much more reliable nowadays than standard RF infrastructure. And it's analog, so you don't need special radios or anything like that. You can use a 5-watt Bofang radio, G5RV, or any of the, what is it, the what? UV5R. Like I've been in HF mode because of field day. The UV5R, $30 radio and a $30 Raspberry Pi, cable to connect them, a little bit of Linux programming, and now you're connected across the world. So look for that in the future, as well as, again, next spring, once we get through the season, we're going to work out some of the details on a new presentation for the Skywarn, more for the weather side of things, with what does an outlook look like, how does Storm Prediction Center work, Storm Prediction Center issues watches, counties issue warnings, in the life cycle of a storm from models to surveys. Anything from the group? David? Good? All right, well, thank you. If anybody has any questions, you can shoot me an email, and we'll go from there.